What is visual literacy? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines visual literacy as the ability to recognize and understand ideas conveyed through visible actions or images as pictures. But what does this actually mean? In going through the centuries, one can see what visual literacy has meant through the ages, in that the evolution of language started with pictures, progressed to pictographs, and then to the alphabet. Flying backwards through the centuries, let us look at visual literacy in the 12,000 BC. This was the age of cave paintings, where the written word as we know it did not yet exist, yet these people were skilled in their visual representations. Although people write accounts of what they consider something needed to be preserved and remembered, during the age of ancient pictographs, the people used pictures to record what was important to them. Moving forward around 2000 BC, we encounter petroglyphs, or rock carvings. Very common in North America, petroglyphs can be found out west as well as in places as far east as Pennsylvania. Essentially performing the same function as pictographs in the history of visual literacy, the use of petroglyphs lasted into the 6th century AD and even later. In Europe, early Christian art was about telling stories through pictures. During these times, many people were illiterate. In order to make biblical stories accessible to everyone, paintings were created that illustrated scenes from the Bible. These relied upon the visual literacy of the people to be able to, with some prompting, recall the biblical stories which were considered important. The diminishing of visual literacy and the rise of reliance upon reading words started with the Sumerians' text of cuneiform in around 3500 BC. This then led to the creation of the Egyptian hieroglyphs about 400 years later. Although hieroglyphs could at times look like what it represented, it was not always the case with all the symbols used. Eventually, the Phoenicians in 2000 BC created abstract letters to use for writing, and upon these letters became our modern alphabet. Moving to the present day, we see in a world that relies heavily upon the written word. Emailing, text messaging, blogging, tweeting, the list could go on and on. The question is, in the text-cluttered world, where does visual literacy come into play? The average person is bombarded with hundreds of images daily, and it is our visual literacy that gives meaning to those images. Everyone knows what the icons on computer screens stand for, and how to read the images on road signs even without any text. The fact stands that although we remember 30% of what we read, we remember 80% of what we see. The average person is fairly visually literate in the basic sense. Everyone knows what the icon on the computer screen stands for and how to read the images on road signs even without any text. One often hears a picture is worth 1,000 words, and for those who understand the identification process or the perceived relationships between the images and the viewers, visual literacy becomes the power of persuasion. If you are visually literate, you can control the masses with images, which is exactly what happens with the use of advertisement. In order to be visually literate, you need to understand what stimuli humans respond to, whether it is seeing images we relate to, creating associations between images, or being drawn directly through the placement of images. People respond to images, and then through images, people are persuaded. In being visually literate, we can understand in what ways others are trying to persuade us. Also, we gain the power to persuade others. In the words of John Debs, who coined a much-used definition of visual literacy, a visually literate person can discriminate and interpret the visible actions, objects, symbols, natural or man-made, that he encounters in his environment, and in doing this, we have a better understanding of what is happening in the world around us.